Hello, I'm Andy Hodges and welcome to The Mint. Last couple of days, ZTN has given you an extensive coverage of the budget statement that, of course, we had yesterday by the Finance Minister, Professor Ntuli Ncube. And of course, that started off on Wednesday with the chase where we looked at 2020 budget, what was in it for general citizens. That was a pre-budget show, followed by our build-up to the budget, and then the actual budget yesterday in Parliament, followed by, of course, analysis by our guests and experts. And of course, today we thought to ourselves, you know what? Why don't we try and round up some of the clips that we put together over the last 3 days and try to tell you what did our guests say, what did the Finance Minister say, and really try and highlight some of the salient points. Of course, as well, please, if you look at some of our other Zim Papers publications, the Herald, the Business Weekly, you've got the Manika Post, and of course the Chronicle. And of course on Sunday, don't forget the Sunday Mail, in the sense of looking at in-depth stories on the budget and looking at different angles on the budget. So please go out and buy some of our Zim Paper newspapers, and I'm sure you'll get even more content there. And you can follow us on our website. We have lots of stories on the budget at ztn.co.zw, and our Facebook page, Zim Papers TV Network. Anyway, let's jump straight into this. Of course, the major highlight of the thing for most of us, the major highlight of the budget for most of us, of course, was the increase in the tax-free threshold from $700 to $1,000, and of course the increase in the bonus threshold from $1,000 to $5,000. We looked at what our guest said and what Ntuli said. Have a look at this.
Simplified tax regime that will allow to cast the net wider to the informal market.
Yes.
Because the 2% tax will...
That's what he wanted, the 2% tax.
Yes, but then unfortunately it then also was extended to the sectors that were already being taxed.
You're also paying payee, and then you're also being hit on the 2%. It would make sense for him to reduce payee, and then possibly then we just get taxed on the 2%.
I propose to review the tax-free threshold from $700 to $2,000 per annum, and adjust the tax bands to begin at $2,001 and end at $50,000, above which the highest marginal tax rate is 40%.
Well, there you go. That will obviously put more money in your pocket. That's good news for ordinary Zimbabweans, for the general population, of course, who are getting pay and getting wages. That's great, and also the bonuses. Now then, one thing, of course, the minister said it was about moving from an austerity budget to a growth budget. And one major focus of the government through this budget was job creation. And an important aspect of that was looking at youth employment. As we said, with over, 70-80% of our population under the age of 35, it was critical we put in place measures and steps to create employment for our youth. And one way he's going to do that, of course, is to give a $500 per month incentive to firms who hire youth, which of course will hopefully help boost youth. Of course, there may be some issues with that. Companies argue they're not producing enough to make money. However, it is a good step. It means that you will get paid as a company if you employ youth. And you know what? We were pretty much right in our pre-budget comments. Have a look at this as well. Our guests and the Minister of Finance and what they said.
Some sort of stimulus for it has to happen somewhere. Let's say if the government starts rewarding its employees well, there's macroeconomic stability, they are start to being able to afford more. We also will start to do a bit more in terms of volumes.
A youth employment incentive so that you get the youth in jobs. So who will have to do that to companies? Whoever will then employ youths will then be exempted from tax.
Under the 2020 budget, a fiscal incentive is being introduced to support employers who generate jobs for our young job seekers. Any additional job created will attract a percentage tax rebate to the employer linked to the employee's salary. Treasury, through the 2020 budget, is committing $500 million for this fund. The fund will provide affordable loans to young entrepreneurs, including those engaged in production, that way encouraging them to be job creators and not job seekers.
Now, the minister also acknowledged that agriculture is the backbone of our economy and that drought affected the 2019 budget in a huge way, coupled with Cyclone Idai. He's anticipating a better rainy season this year going into the 2019-2020 season. But agriculture still remains a mainstay of Zimbabwe economy. Now, of course, Command Agriculture has been with us for a number of years. However, it's been purely financed by government directly to farmers. The Minister of Finance changed the matrix this year. He said that government would no longer directly finance agriculture. They would try and do it through the private sector or through banks and give guarantees to banks. That will do two things. One, it means that banks will have to look at bankable projects. Farmers must then perform. And secondly, it means that the 99-year leases, which our farmers hold, become bankable because most of the things will be guaranteed by government to the banks. So that's a good move. And I mean, agriculture, as he said, look at how much he focused on agriculture in the budget.
For agriculture, embracing climate-smart agriculture will improve prospects for agricultural sector, which is projected to grow by at least 5% in 2020. This growth is attributable also to a better rainfall season during the 2019-2020 season, supported by timely disbursements of inputs.
Now, health is a basic human right. In fact, our Constitution says that every citizen has the right to have access to basic health. And health obviously did have one of the largest allocations in the budget 2020. And of course, one other area which is concerned to citizens is the affordability of drugs and medicines. And one area looked at, where he touched on, was how to stimulate the pharmaceutical sector. Remember, we had CAPS Holdings, which used to be one of the largest manufacturers of drugs and medicines in Zimbabwe, and in fact used to export into the region. So he looked at resuscitating that. He talked about giving 6.5 billion to health, but look, it's still not enough, of course, because we still need to build new hospitals. We have to make sure that we look after our health, all of us, to be frank with you. So anyway, the Minister Nube was very clear about health in his budget.
To consolidate our achievements in the health care sector, I am allocating $6.5 billion to that ministry, for the sector, to improve our lives and extend our lives. This will cater for health infrastructure, personnel welfare, medicines, drugs and sundries, among other essential hospital equipment and necessities.
Now, production became a major factor in the budget. The fact is that we have to produce. In fact, the President himself and the Minister of Finance have used the three words strongly: production, production, production. The idea here is that he's looking at trying to get industry to retool by again giving a government guarantee to creditors to get lines of credit so that companies can retool. The idea is to try and ramp up production. Coupled with that, of course, he's looking at import substitution, which is very critical because as a nation of importers, unfortunately Zimbabwe has become a nation of importers. We need to move away from that. The Minister was aware of that. We need to put in place import substitution. We need to start buying homegrown products. So he came up with some incentives and some ideas on how to boost productivity.
Our reliance on Kariba is an issue, but I think we also need to look at alternatives. You know, we're talking to the technocrats. There is power that's also available in the region, and at times some of the challenges that we've had has been the issue of the time that it has taken us to actually come up with interventions and implementing those interventions.
Treasury will also provide a guarantee scheme for companies to access capital from financial institutions for retooling purposes. Overall, the Ministry of Industry and Commerce is allocated a budget of 368 billion, excluding the other resources directed to IDC and excluding the credit guarantee scheme for companies to access credit from financial institutions for retooling.
Mining. Zimbabwe is endowed with incredible resources in mining. And of course, the plan is by 2030, we should have $12 billion coming through the mining sector. And of course, mining will grow, apparently, according to the minister, 4.7%. In fact, according to his own numbers, there will be overall growth of around 3% across all sectors. Mining, 4.7%, manufacturing, slightly 0.1%, electricity and water, 2.1% on the back of a good rainy season, which of course fills up Kariba, which means that we can generate power at Kariba. Hotels and restaurants, 4.2%, etc. As I said, get a copy of the Business Weekly. It's there on the front page. You'll be able to see some of these analysis and numbers. But of course, he looks at what can he do for the mining? How can he incentivize mining, particularly small-scale miners? And he put in place put in place measures in the budget to do just that. In fact, Honourable Member Nduna, who's from Chigutu West, was very complimentary to the Minister about what he did to artisanal miners. Minister of Finance, listen to what he had to say.
Realization of the $12 billion mining industry target by year 2023 will be advanced through the 2020 budget. The sector is projected to rebound to 4.7% growth on account of the expected improvements in the availability of power, of electricity.
So that's it, really. That's a kind of a roundup. Of course, there's so much that was in the budget. We didn't unpack all of it. But just to give you a few tidbits and highlights, all you know, though, is that ZTN has had extensive coverage. We've covered the budget, and as has all of the Zim Papers groups, publications, the Herald, the Chronicle, Manika Post, Business Weekly, and I'm sure the Sunday Mail on Sunday. So make sure you look at those, and also our website, ztn.co.zw, and our Facebook page, Zim Papers TV Network. Well, it's been fun being with you over the last 3 days. It's been hectic. I hope you've enjoyed the budget. I hope there's something in there for you. I think the general consensus is the minister did the best he can with the tools he had. Well, I'm Andy Hodges, and this is The Mint. You have a great weekend, and all of you, please be safe. Goodbye.